Shotgun Willie and Other Stories. Our first story is titled Surviving a Plane Crash. Willie was flying into the landing strip near Happy Shahan's western town that they used for the Alamo movie set. Happy is watching the plane coming in, knowing Willie's on it. The plane hits a big chunk hole in the strip and flips over on its side and crashes. Happy likes news and publicity, so first thing he does is pick up the phone and call the radio stations, the TV, the newspaper. Happy says, "Willie Nelson's plane just crashed. Y'all better hurry." He jumped in a Jeep and drove out to the crash to pick up the remains. And here comes Willie and his pilot, limping up the road. The media people were arriving by then. They started firing questions at Willie. How did he survive? Was he dying? Was he even hurt? Willie smiles and says, "Why, this was a perfect landing. I walked away from it, didn't I?" Our next story is called Recording Red-Headed Stranger for $4,000. That's right. Arguably the greatest, most influential album in the history of country music was recorded on a shoestring budget at the Renegade and recently opened Autumn Sound Studios in the Dallas suburb of Garland. In 1975, Autumn sound engineer Phil York was trying to promote the new studio. He knew Willie through harmonica player Mickey Raphael and offered Willie a free day of recording. With complete creative control over the album as part of his new contract with Columbia Records, Willie set out to record a stripped-down, conceptualized record that was like nothing the overproducing bean counters in Music Row had ever heard. Willie's version of Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain became Willie's first #1 song, and the album remains many critics' pick for the best country record ever. Eat that, Music Row. Our third story is called Gun Battle at the Birmingham Coliseum. After playing a concert in Birmingham, Alabama in the late 70s, Willie and the band found themselves in the middle of a gun battle in a 6-story parking garage as they were unloading gear from the stage. Though the story involves Willie getting involved in the fracas with his own weaponry, it also illustrates Willie's unique disposition as a peacemaker. All of a sudden we hear kaboom, kaboom, Willie's longtime stage manager, Pooty Locke, recalls. It's the sound of a .357 Magnum going off in the parking garage. The echoes sound like a howitzer shells exploding. It's kind of semi-dark, and this guy comes plowing through this parking deck. Now here comes this woman with a effing pistol. Kaboom! She's chasing this Mother Hubbard. It sounds like an effing war. At the time, Willie Nelson and most of his band and road crew carried pistols as a matter of habit. The scene became chaotic as the shooting happened right as the crowd from the show was filing out into the parking garage. People are piling out of the show and they start scattering, Pooty continues. Here comes the cops from every direction. They're flying out of their cars, hitting the parking deck and spreading eagle the whole crowd. On the deck, Mother Hubbards, because the cops didn't know who's shooting at who. All these cops are squatting down in the door jambs, turning people over, frisking them, aiming guns at everybody, just waiting for the next shot to be fired. And here comes Willie. He walks off the bus wearing cutoffs and tennis shoes, and he's got 2 huge Colt .45 revolvers stuck in his waist. The barrels are so long they stick out of the bottom of his cutoffs. 2 shining Mother Hubbard pistols in plain sight of a bunch of cops, nervous as crap. Willie just walks over and says, "What's the trouble?" Well, he's got some kind of aura to him that just cools everything out. The cops put up their guns, the people climb off the concrete, and pretty soon Willie is signing autographs. Okay, our final story is called Shotgun Willie and the Great Ridgetop Shootout. It was in the aftermath of an incident that would later be remembered as the Great Ridgetop Shootout that Willie Nelson got the nickname Shotgun Willie. Ridgetop was the house Willie lived in just outside of Nashville in the late 1960s. When it burned down in 1970, it stimulated Willie's move back to Texas. Well, in 1969, Willie and his first wife, Martha, separated, and his second wife, Shirley, moved into Ridgetop. Willie and Martha had 3 children, and right before Christmas in 1969, Willie's youngest daughter, Susie, told Willie that his oldest daughter, Lana, was being physically assaulted by her husband, Steve Warren. I ran from my truck and drove to the place where Steve and Lana lived and slapped Steve around, Willie recalls. He really pissed me off. I told him if he ever laid a hand on Lana again, I would come back and drown his ass. No sooner did I get back to Ridgetop than here comes Steve in his car, shooting at the house with a .22 rifle. I was standing in the door of the barn, and a bullet tore up the wood 2 feet from my head. I grabbed an M1 rifle and shot at Steve's car. Steve made one pass and took off. But this wasn't where the incident ended. Willie drove back to Steve and Lana's to confront Steve again. But he was gone and had kidnapped their young son, Nelson Ray. Lana also told Willie that Steve was looking to get rid of him, Willie, as his top priority. So what did Willie do? He drove back to Ridgetop and waited for him, thinking that Steve would come to Ridgetop to pick me off about dusk. I hid in the truck so he couldn't tell if I was home. We laid a trap for him. I had my M1 and a shotgun. He drove by the house and I ran out of the garage door. Steve saw me and took off. That's when I shot his car and shot out his tire. Steve called the cops on me. Instead of explaining the whole damn mess, the beatings and the semi-kidnapping and shooting and all, I told the officers he must have run over the bullet. The police didn't want to get involved in a hillbilly family fight. They wrote down what I told them on their report and took off. Well, those are the Willie Nelson stories. I sure hope you enjoyed them. Why not give us a like and subscribe? It costs nothing, but it sure helps us out a lot with YouTube. Again, thanks for watching.